Yo, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing, checking back in with y'all, man. What's good? Good news, man. Good news. Very promising news. And I'm just hoping everything plays out how it should. And I'm hoping we actually get this fight. You see the title, Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez. A long time coming. We've been wanting this fight for a long time. Real boxing fans has been wanting to see this fight. Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson have been a requested fight since both of these guys was at 126. Shakur Stevenson had been chasing out the Oscar Valdez, tirelessly. He and Josh Warrington at 126. Valdez moved up to 130 without actually fighting Shakur Stevenson. Valdez has put together some, a pretty decent career thus far. Had a knockout of the year versus Miguel Berchelt in a great performance versus a very, very respected and skilled and solid fighter in Miguel Berchelt. Great performance, great win. I think between the two, Valdez has the best win, and that's that Miguel Berchelt win. But he went up to 130. He had another opportunity to fight Shakur Stevenson, but, he didn't seem very interested in fighting Shakur Stevenson. And, we're now hearing that this fight is going to be official for April 30th. I believe they're talking about Vegas, and that's dope. That's a beautiful thing to hear. I'm excited as a boxing fan. I don't really get my hopes up too much these days until I see these guys walking down the aisle on their way to the ring. You know what I'm saying? But just being optimistic, I'm really hoping that this shit is gonna happen. And it's a great fight. It's always been a great fight. Of course, I heavily favor Shakur Stevenson, but that doesn't mean it's not a good fight. That doesn't mean Valdez doesn't have a chance to win, because I believe Valdez is a very skilled fighter. Very skilled fighter. He has shown that he can box. He's shown that he can fight on the inside a little bit. He got good power. Again, knockout of the year versus Miguel Berchelt. One of the best knockouts that you will see. He could be technical. He has, some skillful guys in his camp that he can learn from. And of course, he did get caught using the performance enhancing drugs. He said he was sipping on some tea, and that kind of put some spiked this system. I believe he had phetamine in this system. I made a video on that, and in regard to what phetamine is and what it does, the advantages, the competitive advantage that it could give a fighter over his opponent. But they said that he was sipping on some tea. Mauricio Suleiman allowed him to keep his title. He went in and into the fight, on those drugs, and fought Robson Canseco. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Canseco. And that fight was extremely competitive. A lot of people felt like Robson won that fight. They robbed son. That's what a lot of people thought. But the record books say that Valdez was the winner. He moves on, still undefeated. And now we have Shakur Stevenson coming off of the best and biggest win of his career versus who was at that time the longest reigning champion at 130 in Jamel Herring. And beat Jamel Herring in spectacular fashion. A bigger guy, a more experienced guy, a veteran in the game, who had all of the physical advantages. But Shakur, well, as far as like the dimensions, height, arm length, and shit like that. But you seen in the fight who had the speed, the hand speed and foot speed advantage. You seen who was the more physically stronger fighter. It was Shakur Stevenson. You seen who had the power advantage. It was Shakur Stevenson. You dig what I'm saying? So that was a beautiful performance. Great win. Both of these guys have put together some nice victories on their resume. Shakur Stevenson is a 2-division champion, and he's making himself out to be a pound for pound guy. I believe that, you know, you can make a case for Shakur Stevenson being pound for pound right now. I didn't have him on my latest list, but this fight right here, he could very well be on there. But this fight right here, if he can go out there and beat Oscar Valdez and do it in spectacular fashion, become unified champion for the first time in his career in his second division, it's huge. And I believe that this would put Shakur Stevenson up there with the best, with the very best in the sport, because skillfully, there's nothing that he can't do. He has everything that you would want to see out of a fighter. Probably the most, I think, out of the young guys 25 and under, he might be the most polished. He might be the most prolific when you're just looking at just technique, skills. Shakur Stevenson looks like he's the most polished, the most ring savvy, the most intelligent. You know, he's a student of the game. He really studied this shit, and you can see it when he fights. So he's only going to continue to get better and better. I mean, this guy's a silver medalist, you know, an Olympian. Amateur record is amazing. His amateur career was fucking fantastic, and he's been nothing short of great in his pro career thus far. And, you know, I think this is a good stylistic matchup. I think you'll have to, Valdez, if he want to be successful, he'll have to try to put pressure on Shakur Stevenson. He's going to have to come forward and, you know, try to make Shakur Stevenson uncomfortable. Whether or not he can do that, we'll have to see. That's why we have these fights. Shakur Stevenson, I don't think he has to do anything special to beat Valdez. I just think he just got to beat Shakur Stevenson because he can do everything. You know, I think he'll go into that fight as the more skilled fighter. You know, in every way, in every category. I just don't really see anything that Valdez does better than Shakur Stevenson. But I think stylistically, you know, Valdez could have some success, but he's going to have to put an immense amount of pressure on Shakur Stevenson. I think Stevenson can deal with it, and I think it'll actually work into his hands, work into his favor, because Stevenson is an extremely talented counterpuncher. And he's very good at controlling the distance and setting traps while guys are working their way on the inside. Shakur Stevenson can give off the perceived he can make it seem like to his opponent that there's a target there for you. That's how well he controls distance. I think Shakur Stevenson is top 5, one of the best when it comes to distance control, up there with the likes of Earl Spence Jr., who I think is amazing at controlling distance. Of course, Shakur Stevenson being a southpaw, you can see it right offhand with the body position and the footwork. He don't do a lot of wasted movement. You don't see Shakur Stevenson bouncing on his toes, like doing a whole lot of wild shit. Shakur Stevenson, he just controls the distance. He controls you. He don't do a whole lot of wasted movement or none of that shit. He'll sit right there and what is perceived to be right in front of you, but he's just in range to hit you and just out of range where you can't hit him. And even if you have a reach advantage, he can still control the distance just like he did versus Jamel Herring. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, this Valdez is really going to have to, like, up his pressure and his punch rate, his volume. He's going to have to be incredibly focused and in great condition and in shape to be able to put up the amount of pressure that he's going to need for 12 rounds. If it does go 12 rounds, he going to need every bit of that in order to be competitive in this fight, because it can get out of hand and get away from him real quick once Shakur Stevenson find his groove, find that distance that he want to fight at, and just start picking him off. And every time Valdez try to jump on in there, Shakur hitting him with all type of shit to the head and to the body. You know, y'all know I love that jab to the body. You know what I mean? That stick to the solar plexus that Shakur Stevenson throws oh so well, which also allows him to control guys and keep them at bay. As soon as they feel like they getting a little too close, you know, hit him right there in the bread basket and stop all that shit. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is a great fight, man, and I'm happy for Shakur Stevenson. I really hope that this shit comes into fruition and it gets solidified and confirmed, this will put Shakur Stevenson up there with all the greats and the top guys in the sport right now when you talk about pound for pound. You know, he already has the skill. I think Shakur Stevenson just skillfully is one of the top 5 most skilled fighters in the sport of boxing. He just haven't been afforded the opportunity to put that particular resume together yet because so many guys been avoiding him, like Oscar Valdez. He could have been unified at 126. You know, Stevenson could have been beat up on Oscar Valdez and Josh Warrington. You know, but now it's time. Now it's time for Valdez to come out of hiding. I feel like he's been protected. You know, Bob Arum been trying to keep Shakur Stevenson away from his Hispanic fighters so he can make these big Hispanic, like, you know, he feel like that they the ones that pay the most money and buying tickets and all this type shit. So he wanted to make I think he wanted to make Navarrete and Valdez, or you know, put Valdez in there with, you know, he did the Burchell fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the type of fights that Bob Arum was trying to make. The same shit that Terrence Crawford was talking about. You know what I mean? In that lawsuit. You feel me? But, you know, I'm glad that Bob is at least trying to make this shit happen. And we'll see where it goes. So, you know, you can't run no more, Oscar Valdez. You got to get on in there. And you can't use that T. You know what I'm saying? You got to go in there without your T this time. And we going to see what you really made of. We going to see if the skills that you have can really pay the bills. You know, because if not, Oscar Valdez gonna get his ass whooped. He gonna get drugged up out that ring. You know, I could see Shakur Stevenson stopping Oscar Valdez in spectacular fashion, devastating fashion. You know what I mean? It could be an accumulation of ass whooping. They might have to pull Shakur Stevenson up off that boy, peel him up off of him. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. How do y'all feel about this matchup? You know, just based off of what you've seen from both guys. Who you think would have the edge coming into this fight? Who would you favor going into this fight? You know, shout out to Chris Colbert. You know, I see he's trying to make some moves and get his name popping in the division as well. I would love to see the winner of this fight Chris Colbert. You know what I'm saying? And we'll see what happens, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Contender regime boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.